Okay, cool. So where are you located?
Nashville, Tennessee.
Nashville, Tennessee. Man, that place has grown. I was there in '05, '04, '05, and I've heard stories of how big it's blown up. So it's getting pretty populated.
Yeah, yeah. I'm originally from here, and it's
Okay.
changed a lot since I graduated high school for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I feel like that I'm in Kansas City, and it's grown up quite a bit. It doesn't hurt that St. Mahomes came in and gave us a dynasty, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. So I love your background. There's so many things that are a part of your world. But to begin with, because of that, how did you get through COVID? How has that influenced the way that you do your work now?
Um, well, I got to answer that in a couple different ways. Because one is from the stunt perspective, because I am a stunt man and have been for 30 years. I'm still doing that. In fact, I'm working later today, and I'm leaving tomorrow for another job after that. So it's something that I do regularly, and COVID put all of that to rest for a good long time. And it was really hard for a lot of people. I mean, people lost houses. It was a really rough time. People were just struggling to try to find any kind of side jobs that they could do to survive. Now, luckily, I was at the time of COVID still working with the US Army. So I had a full-time job doing the sport performance psychology consulting for the Army. We weren't going on to the post, but I was still working from home. And the way that I earned my money was doing videos. So I would set up a camera and I would just teach classes via video, and those would get posted on social media and various other places. I think if you search YouTube, you can probably find some of them. But they got put out there, and that's what I did during COVID. So for me, again, having that dual approach to making a living, at least dual, I guess three or four different ways now. But
Yeah.
at the time, I was working for the Army and I was doing stunts, and that was having both was really helpful for me because if I had just been doing stunts,
Yeah.
it would have been a really rough. I don't know. I don't know what would have happened. I'm very grateful that I had the job that I did when that hit.
So you got a diversification of skills and things that you're doing now. And I want to kind of simplify that a little bit. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of grade schoolers at career day, and they're going to absolutely love you. I know they are. And one of the kids is curious and wants to know what you do on a daily basis. How do you answer that child?
um, it, I, I can tell them the things that I do. I don't know what's going to happen on a daily basis. I mean,
Right.
sometimes I'm pursuing the stunt work, calling stunt coordinators, sending out whatevers to whomever, training, staying in shape. I mean, that's a big part. I'm 51, so I work out. I call it working out. I do some sort of exercise twice a day. I'll do some stretching or something at least in the morning, and then I do some stretching or something at least at night. And in between, I'll do some heavier duty things. I go to the trampoline park with one of my kids and stay active, flipping and just keep the air sense where it needs to be. So I do that for the stunt side. I keep reading for the sport and performance psychology side. I have some journals and I'll read through at least the abstracts. Sometimes I don't get through the whole articles, but just keep up on who's doing what with the research and and then just other books that interest me. I mean, right now I'm pressure is my main focus, and so I have a stack of books on pressure and how different people have conceptualized pressure and the advice that they've given around performing with pressure, around pressure, etc. So it's it really and I run a business. So anybody who runs a business who's an entrepreneur knows you got the marketing side of the thing, you've got the money side of the thing, you've got the all the stuff, networking, etc. Those are all part of my day too. Here we are talking.
Yeah.
So, it really does run the gamut. And in some ways it's I wish it were different. I wish I had a more regimented schedule. And I guess since I make my own schedule, I could if I really wanted it.
Yeah.
But it's tough because there are just so many things and throughout the day things change and emails come and phone calls happen and I just kind of have to move and shake and adapt and really just try to keep in my mind a main priority of the day. So if I were to answer that kid, like, what do I do today? Well, I don't know. What's the priority today? Is the
Right.
priority pursuing stunts? Is the priority marketing the business? Is the priority creating content for the business? Is it whatever the priority is that day?
Yeah.
I need to at least make a decent sized push in that direction to feel good about making progress that day. but it certainly doesn't limit the day to only that. It
Yeah.
really is because I got kids too. I mean, I don't know if you got have kids. I'm sure
Yeah.
your audience. Again, one of them just got sick, stayed home from school yesterday. Well, that changed the whole everything. So
I get it.
one of them forgot her phone at the climbing gym. She's a rock climber. That's what she does, and she forgot her phone last night. So that changed my day today because I ended up driving to the gym this morning to go pick up her phone. So you never know what
Yeah.
the day's gonna bring. And in a lot of ways, I like that. It's one of the reasons I really am happy to not have a full-time job in the traditional sense of go somewhere and be in a place and do the thing and then go home and then do it all again the next day. I did that with the Army, and it was good for what it was good for. And again, I'm grateful that I had it during COVID for sure. But it's just not it's just not the lifestyle that I enjoy living.
Yeah. Well, the kids would probably get stuck on the stunt part of what you do. That would be it. They would hear that and it would be over with. So I'm curious, when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
The first thing that I remember wanting to be when I grew up was a fighter pilot. And
Yeah.
I'm not sure at what age that happened, but I did have some models that I built of F-15s, F-14s, F-18s, different things. I have a calendar with the fighter jets. And I started the process of applying to the Air Force Academy and made it to the part where they gave me an eye exam and said that I couldn't fly a plane because I had astigmatism. So that was the end of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
No more fighter pilot. And after that I was lost. I didn't know. And that happened in my junior year of high school. So between my junior year of high school and my junior year of college, I it was a question that I asked myself a lot. What are you going to be when you grow up? What are you going to do? What are some
Yeah.
things that you care about or some directions you can go? I kept my eyes open to different possibilities and different jobs. I figured it would be something related to psychology because when I was a senior in high school, I took a psychology class and it fascinated me. That was my initial interest. I figured it would have something to do with kids because I'd been working with kids since I was one. I was working at a day camp. I worked at an after school program. I coached soccer. I coached baseball. I taught swim lessons all through the YMCA. And so I thought it would be something in that area, but I had no idea what. And then went to college at Rutgers in New Jersey, kind of, floundered through the freshman year, sophomore year. At the beginning of my junior year, I had the opportunity to go to the Six Flags in New Jersey. And there was the guy who was the company manager of the Batman stunt show out there was a guy I knew from Nashville. And so he got us tickets to the park. We went out to go see the show. And that was it. I mean, from the minute it started, like this huge whine of a guitar, and then this big explosion happened, and motorcycles came jumping out of this place that you didn't expect motorcycles to come jumping out of. I was hooked.
Yeah.
And because I knew the guy who ran the show, I was able to go backstage and talk to the performers and ask them the question that probably is, on the minds of many people right now. Well, how do you get to be a stuntman?
Yeah.
And that was exactly what I asked these people. I said, how do you get this job? How do you get to be able to do this? I couldn't even believe it was a job at that
Right.
point. I mean, I'm watching them have the fun out on stage doing the stuff that I would pay to do, and they're making money doing it. But they told me, they said, you got to know how to do fights, high falls, and motorcycles. And then you go to the audition and you see what happens. So I linked up with one of the performers who taught me to do fights and high falls. I went and bought a dirt bike and just practiced over the next, I don't know, 6 months or so on slides, wheelies, and jumps. Got to the point where I was not good by any means, but I was, whatever. I could do it.
Yeah.
So I went to the audition and I ended up getting the job as an alternate initially, but then the second day of rehearsal, one of the full-time guys got hurt, and so move up the ladder, and
Yeah.
and that was it. So I did that show that summer, and that's when I decided. I mean, I decided when I was in that show, that's what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to pursue. I felt a passion and a connection to that job and everything that it involved in a way that I'd never felt before with anything. And it was exciting. And then I went back to school my senior year and couldn't focus on anything. I was
Wow.
failing all kind. I don't somehow or another I struggled through the first semester, but I was going to fail for sure the second semester, and I ended up dropping out. I left school with one semester to go, did not graduate that time around. Obviously, I have a master's and a PhD now, so I went back. But at that time, I dropped out of school, moved to LA, and started being a stuntman out there. That's how
Wow.
that happened.
That's wild. So what was the toughest gig that you've been on? One that maybe you grew the most, but it was one of the most satisfying gigs that you were on.
One of the well, the way that you worded that one, there's no question. It's Twilight Breaking Dawn. I was doubling Michael Sheen on that, who was the lead bad vampire playing Aro was the character,
Yeah.
and I was doubling him, and I was just being random bad people because what it was is there was a big fight scene at the end, and it's out in the snow, and all the literally every actor that was in any of the movies was out there. We're all fighting, and so I would just be I'd be this guy over here getting beat up or that guy over there getting beat up, unless Michael they were shooting something with him, and then I would put on his whole garb and go double him. But that was a month and a half that
Wow.
I spent. I believe it was Baton Rouge. It was somewhere in Louisiana. And they had rented out a whole horse arena place, filled it with about, I don't know, 8 to 12 inches of fake snow and green screens all around the whole thing. And every day, 14 hours a day. They were long, long days out there. They were not the most organized on that show. But I got to work with some of the most talented people that are out there, and they're still out there. They're still coordinating shows, some of the best stunt people that exist. They were young at that time. They were just coming into their own, and they're still good now. And it was a really great experience being out there and just getting to do so many different things and to work with Michael Sheen. He's just a terrific individual. We got along really well. And so yeah, the way the show on which I grew and really had the most fun that really comes back with smiles on my face every time is that one. That was a great one.
You know, I saw a documentary on Evil Knievel, and to this day, I can't believe how much he put his body through and literally was able to still get up and live as long as he did and operate. How did he do that?
I don't know about that guy. I mean, I can tell you what I do,
Right.
and that's what I already told you, which is stretch
Yeah.
every morning and every night. Because I'll tell you that people have asked that too. They're like, what's the most important thing if you want to be a stuntman? What's the most important thing you need to focus on? And it's a weird answer that it throws them every time, but I tell them flexibility because you try to know what position your body's going to land in with stuff. I mean, you do your best to figure out places and directions and how you're going to land and roll and whatever. But things come up, and sometimes you get thrown in some weird positions. I'll tell you, I was doing a live show. It was a touring Spider-Man show, and we were hitting Broadway theaters around the U.S. That was a lot of fun too. But one of the shows, the Spider-Man suit had uh, these eyes that had little holes poked in them. So
Yeah.
you'd look through there, but then the stage lights were really bright, and so it was almost like getting multiple glares. It was really tough to see in some of the places. But there was one part where I was doing this fight with this wrestler guy, and I climbed up on this platform, probably about, I don't know, 5 feet high, and he comes charging in, and as he comes charging in, do a backflip over the top of him, land, and then punch him or kick him, or I don't remember what it was, but on this particular occasion, I climbed up to the top and just got lost. I got lost in the lights. I didn't know where I was. And I took off to do the flip. And next thing you know, I landed on the back of my head, just tacoed right over. And and to this day, I credit flexibility with the fact that I'm not paralyzed because I mean the position that I landed in and from the height that I landed in it
Yeah.
from was not good
Yeah.
at all. And but that stuff happens. So flexibility is the best thing. So I don't know. Maybe Evil Knievel stretched a lot.
Yeah.
I really
Who
don't know.
knows?
But
Yeah.
it's one of those things that if you don't keep up with it'll disappear pretty quick.
Yeah, for sure. So, who's been a hero? Who's been a role model for you in your career?
Um, well, I'll tell you, there's one main one, and luckily I get a chance to work with him. I'm flying out to go do the show tomorrow, working with him. There's a guy named Jeff Cadiente who I met. Well, I met him playing softball. There's a stuntman softball league, and that's how once I moved out to LA, I was able to get into that and meet a lot of people. So I met Jeff in the stuntman softball league, but we didn't really know each other. And then he hired me on a show called Martial Law. This is a show that had Sammo Hung and Arsenio Hall. He hired me on that, and we got along. And turns out he liked to shoot pool. I liked to shoot pool. He thought he was good. I thought I was better. Turns out I was, and we just became friends. And so he hired me on that. And then his next show was one called VIP with Pamela Anderson. Hired me a lot on that show. And then after that, I think it was 24 with Kiefer Sutherland. Worked a lot of the seasons on that. And then Hawaii Five O. And now he's got a show called The Cleaning Lady. They're in season 4 of that. And I've worked seasons 1, 2, and 3. This will be the first time I'm working on season 4. So, but Jeff has been a role model, and he's been a role model in several ways. One is The guy, he's incredibly intelligent. He's very, very smart and he's very analytical. And I think that's what you have to be. This came up on another podcast that I was doing the other day. Is, one of the things that I hear a lot, you must be crazy. Stunt people are nuts. How do you do like any crazy stunt people will weed themselves out in the first year or two, for sure.
Yeah,
For two reasons. One, they'll either get hurt and they'll just be out of the business, or two, stunt coordinators will recognize that they're crazy and they're not getting hired anymore.
yeah,
So they'll be gone. The stunt people who make it, who have a long career, are ones who can break down the stunts, who can break down the sequences, understand the pieces and all the parts that are necessary in order to walk out the same way you came in, which is always the goal. And Jeff does that incredibly well. I've been on shows where he's been the stunt coordinator, and I'm looking around at the different things, and he's thought of everything. He's talked to the wardrobe people about what clothes to put us in. He's talked to the grips about how to reinforce walls or bars or something that somebody's going to get thrown up against. Just all anything that could pertain to safety and prevent the stunt person from doing what the director really wants to see. Jeff's already thought of it ahead of time, worked it out, talked to the necessary people, got it fixed before we even walk on set. I mean, even down to this was funny too. I was working on martial art. Now, I'm not a martial artist at all. I did martial artsy fights. I worked on Buffy the Vampire Slayer and other, martial artsy things because I could take a punch and do flippy twisty do reactions and stuff. But what I couldn't do, and I had good timing with the punches, but what I couldn't do is kick.
yeah,
Horrible at kicking. Still to this day. Can't kick. Hips are very tight. I can't kick. And so I would tell the stunt coordinators, they're like, "How are you with your fights?" It's like, "Hey, great with the punches, great with reactions. I'll flip, I'll fall, I'll wreck. Just don't make me kick." And I told Jeff the same thing. And so we ended up working on martial law. And this was with Sammo Hung, who's, I don't know if the audience knows who that is. This was Jackie Chan's mentor. This is the
yeah,
guy who brought Jackie Chan into the business. I mean, Sammo Hung is a legend in the martial arts film world. And I'm going to do a fight with him. And, and his group. There were a bunch of us doing fights. I don't know. He was fighting like five of us at once. And the Hong Kong guys that he brought were the ones who choreographed the fight. Normally, the stunt coordinator will choreograph the fight, typically.
yeah.
But in this case, Sammo had his own guys. They didn't know. I didn't tell them that I couldn't kick. So as they're choreographing, I'm sitting there. I'm stressing out. I'm like, oh my god! I hope they don't make me kick. I hope they don't make me kick. I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to make Jeff look stupid. I hope they don't make me kick. And they went through all the choreography and they were like, okay, that's what we're gonna do. And I was like, oh god, thank God, they did not make me kick. And so we went through, we did the fight, and everything was great. And at the end of the show, I went up to Jeff and I said, "Jeff, we got lucky on that." He's like, "What? What happened?" I said, "Dude, they didn't make me kick. I was so worried about it." He's like, "That wasn't luck, bro. I told him." Okay. Should have known. All
Yeah,
right, got it.
that's
So, but
awesome.
yeah, Jeff Cadiente is terrific. I've watched stuff go wrong, on set. I've watched guys get hurt and Jeff doesn't lose it. He handles it in a very just I don't want to say calm because it's not calm, but it is calm, in just a way that is productive. I've watched stuff go wrong. A cannon was supposed to flip it. I mean, big sequence, explosions all over the place, motorcycles wrecking, cars wrecking. This big bus was supposed to flip over. Bus didn't flip over. It was a key story point. Jeff's sitting there right in the middle, and I'm watching him. I'm waiting for him to lose it, and he just stood there and he just breathed and he looked around. I could tell he was thinking. And he turned to the director of photography. He's like, "All right, here's what we're going to do." And then off they went to do what they were going to do. There was
Yeah,
no crying about what was. There was no yelling at who's at fault. It was just, all right, this is the situation. Let's move forward.
yeah.
So I try to emulate Jeff as much as I can when I'm on set.
Yeah. So you got these two worlds. You got being, you're doing the stunts, there's a lot of action, and then you're in the psychology world, you're helping people. How do you take this kind of right and left brain world and make them mutually beneficial to each other to be the best at both of those games?
Well, they're not separate. That for a long time they sort of were in my life. I saw them that way, and that was just my own perspective of which hat am I wearing today? Am I a stuntman today, or am I a sport performance psychology consultant today, or whatever. But but since then, I've figured out how to bring them together in a tangible way. That's what Brian Hite Global is. It's really it's an amalgamation, a synergistic connectedness of my experiences through life, my experiences as a stuntman, my experiences working with the Army for a decade, my experiences with academia, bringing all that together in a way that's beneficial for organizations, for athletes, for performers, truly for whoever it is who wants to be better, who is struggling with pressure and how to handle it, or struggling with motivation and how to sustain it, or struggling with just being overwhelmed in performance environments because there's just so much happening and all at once. How do we do that? And the experiences that I've had in these programs that I've developed really have allowed me to get rid of these individual hats and just put on one every day, moving forward with leveraging the knowledge and experience that I had with stunts, and particularly performing under pressure and in situations where it was high stakes. I mean, truly, if you screw up, somebody's going to die. Sometimes me, sometimes other people, but it was important to do it well and do it well the first time. And then the academic side of, I'm not just making stuff up. It's not just Brian's experience. I'm not an N of one here. There are research studies and there are, there's literature out there to support this approach. There are theories that provide a foundation for the directions that we're going to take. And being able to put all of that together in a way that is unique to my experience, but generalizable to so many other people it's been a fun challenge, and I'm certainly not done with it. It's a process, just like life is overall. It's a journey. There's no, the destination's dead.
Yeah.
There's the rest of it's just journey. So, but I'm really happy to be able to do that. So the sport psychology, sport performance psychology has always informed stunts from the minute that I started taking it. How to keep my attention where it needed to be, how to maintain my motivation, especially during those times when I was either hurt or I wasn't getting jobs or whatever the case might be. How to make sure that in those moments when, like I said, really high stakes, you get one shot at it. How do you get it right? Sport and performance psychology has always informed that. But the stunt side has informed the sport performance psychology stuff too,
Sure.
because I've had so much experience in those areas that I'm able to draw from that experience to put color and a little bit of clarity and I guess I don't know life into some of the theories and the academic stuff.
Yeah. So, of all of these things that you've accomplished and become in your life, what are you the proudest of?
Being a dad. I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't really have much to do with that other than the beginning part, but the process of raising a daughter for the 11 years that I've had the opportunity to do that, I have I've tried to do really everything I can to create an environment for her where she's able to thrive, where she's able to have multiple experiences. I believe very strongly. In fact, I've told her a bunch of times. I said, "Look, my job is to make sure that you are in a place where you're able to experience everything.
Yeah.
That you can have multiple experiences. That you can, if you want to try this, you try this. If you want to try that, you try that, and you can do it in a relatively safe place. Sometimes failure is going to happen. Sometimes injuries are going to occur, but I want to be able to set you up for success by providing that environment. And so far, I've been able to do that, and I think that that's been good. Now, on a selfish note of just a thing that I did that truly, I mean, it was one of the hardest. In fact, I'd say it was the hardest thing that I ever did in terms of set a goal and achieve it was to get the doctorate degree.
Yeah.
That took a decade. That took a year. I mean, 10 years to from the time that my master's ended to the time that I got the PhD. I moved back and forth across the country two, three times. I got divorced at least once, and I think twice during that. Um, there were a lot of tough times in my life, and the dissertation process for anybody who's not familiar with that is incredibly arduous. It's what I do now. I'm a dissertation chair for Grand Canyon University, so I have about a dozen students that I work with right now as a chair for their committee, and I see it. I see it in them and what they're trying to do. And I absolutely, I'm on their team because it is a
Yeah.
hard process, particularly as a grown up with bills to pay. You're not just some kid in school. I mean, you got a life, you've got kids, you got family, and you've got a job, and you're trying to juggle all of that with this rigorous research project that you are supposed to be spearheading with guidance, obviously, from your committee, but it's ultimately on you. That was a really hard
Yeah.
hard thing that that did get accomplished, and I am proud of that.
So at the end of the day, Brian, everyone has a perception of you: family, friends, fans, colleagues, students, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
um, I, I I believe that I'm somebody who's flexible, who's creative, who is volatile sometimes. I wish that I were in better control of my emotions sometimes, but I do get control of them really quickly. I'm one of those people. I'll blow up really quick, and then somebody will say something like, "Oh yeah, okay," and then we're back into whatever it is. I don't lose it for a long period of time,
Yeah.
but I tend to not have a whole lot of patience either, which is another downside sometimes. But ultimately, I like challenge, and I don't want to call it adversity, but I kind of did. It kind of is, I mean, if everything's just coasting along smoothly, that's good for a little bit. But I want those walls to jump over. I want those oceans to swim through. I want those challenges because that's what makes life fun, and
Yeah.
that's what really I don't know that I really enjoy. So it probably would be easier if I did just get a job and go to work every day and I knew exactly what I was going to do and I had the certainty or at least perceived certainty of those situations. But that's not who I am. I am somebody who I enjoy the challenges. I enjoy the change. I enjoy new stimulation, like traveling. I like to travel. I like to go out of the country. I like to all of that. So that's me. I don't know how that gets encapsulated way more concisely than what I just did, but that's but that's
No,
a little snapshot of how I see me.
yeah, no, I dig it. That's great. So if anyone wants to get involved with Brian Hite Global, they want to see anything in your world, reach out, learn more, how can they do it?
Yeah, I'll tell you, if anything that I've said resonates, I'm a keynote speaker too, and I love talking to audiences about this. So you can absolutely get a hold of me at my website, Brian Hite Global, BrianHite Global, GLOBAL.com. And if again, if performing under pressure, if the motivation, if the overwhelmed of performances, if these are things that you're familiar with and they're challenges that you regularly face, I strongly encourage you to go to the website, check out some of the programs that I have,
Yeah.
and if it resonates with you, if it seems like it's something that makes sense, reach out, shoot me an email, Brian@BrianHiteGlobal.com, or you can just sign up for a discovery call right there. It's free, it doesn't cost anything. But just get in touch with me and at least have the conversation to see if maybe there's something that we can do that might help you out.
Right on, Brian. This has been fascinating. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time. Have a great holiday season and a great 2025, man.
Thank you too. I really appreciate you having me on. I've had a good time.
Me too. Thank you.